yesterday we like not yesterday, day before yesterday we saw simple linear regression. So in simple linear regression, what was the thing was, uh, the thing was we have only one dependent variable and one independent variable. But what if we don't have only one independent variable? We have many factors. Like in this particular uh, like in this particular example, we have so many stuffs for a wine quality.cs. We have so many stuffs: fixed acidity, volatile, citric acid, everything to guess the final quality of a wine. We have all the attributes which affects. As I have shown you in simple linear regression, the equation is y is equal to mx plus c, because we have only one independent variable x. What if we have more than that? Then our equation will be y is equal to m1 x1 plus m2 x2 plus m3 x3 till whatever number of independent variables you have, it will be there. So what we have to do in that particular scenario? So in that scenario, the same mathematics that we have tried in simple one, same thing applies. And if you have to apply it in the coding part or in the Python part, it literally do not have to write anything extra other than what you have written in multiple integration. It's exactly the same. So we'll see it. So again, we imported all the necessary libraries. So it's exactly the same as what we use in the linear one. Now we read the files, CSV file, which is winequality.csv. We saw the shape. Now shape is 64,097 and there are 13 columns. So fixed acidity, volatile, citric acid, everything. Now we describe the data set. What kind of data set we have? We have the count, mean, STD. It's not necessary right now, but in linear regression, if you remember, I'll show you linear regression. Out of all the data that we have, we took only maximum temperature and minimum temperature, and we tried to make a simple linear regression line. But this time we are not gonna select any one. We're gonna take each and every attribute. Now before that, we checked that if there's any data like in this our data set, there's any null values or not. So we just wrote data set that is null. So it is null will give you uh, is null will give you if there is a null value or not. So this will give you null value or not. So it will give you like true, false, true, false, true, false, the whole matrix. Now any function is just like an OR function. So it just tells you if there is any null value in the whole row. Like you can see type or you can see fixed acidity. So it will find like in the whole column. The whole column, if I'll show you the whole data set only, remove the shape here. So in type, you can see type it shows false. So it tells that out of all the number of all the rows, there is no null values. In fixed acidity, you have some. It's not, this line is not telling you where, but it's telling you that it has some. So you can see there are some true values, there are some false values. Now, okay, this is done. So now we got to know that our data set has some in what not a number values or missing values. So we have to handle that before using this particular model to any data set or to make any model. Now for that particular thing, for this particular example, we just use fill-na and method of ffill. Now this line does what? Data set dot fill-na. I explained you the meaning of fill-na, that just gonna go to each and every place where the fill-na is, like where the not a number object is, and it's gonna fill it depending upon what exact thing that you're providing. You can provide a proper number, but if you provide like you provided one, you don't know like for fixed acidity what is the range, volatile acidity what is the range, and what all. So it depends. Now there is a method. There's a parameter called method. So what method will do? Method takes some values. If I'll show you, shift. Method takes some values. Go. So it depends on what you're providing. It's backfill, bfill, padding, ffill, none. So different things have different at different meanings. So this is ffill, known as forward fill. There's bfill, which is on a backward fill. So it's just on when you don't, we're not what can you say, not considering the filling of like removing the missing values as a really important thing. You can just use some inbuilt functions to just complete your work. It's not a good thing to do, but for example, I'm showing it to you because if you're doing it in a company or like doing it for a proper project, you have to take care of the missing values and you have to make sure that the data that you're filling there should be the most appropriate, and you have to have a proper reason backing up that why you put that particular value there. Now, currently we're not focusing on how you fill the data set because filling of the data and all is most of the time a data science job, like how to manage all the missing values. But still, it's good that you should know it. Now, in method.ffill, what happens is just gonna take, as the name suggests, ffill. It means forward fill. So what it will do, if imagine there is a missing value here, like this particular place is a missing value. What will forward fill will do? Just gonna take one step forward, like one step forward, to see what all data is there, and just gonna copy it here. That's what a forward fill do. So it's most of the time is quite what consistent. You can see that it doesn't give you that much of error, but it's not a proper thing to do. Like most of the time, if you want to just make a shortcut, you can do it as a forward fill or backward fill. And there are cases when you do not have any, you can't even find a proper reason how to fill a data. Then you can use a forward and backward fill. But if you have a proper reason, like you have a proper mathematical conclusion that you can fill this particular data, you should do that only. But if you don't have, or if you're not paying attention on the missing values thing, you're just paying attention on how to make your model fast, like how to complete your model, then you can just use all the fill in methods. So forward fill will just go to each and every place where there's a missing value, check the next place, like what is the data which is at the next place, and just gonna copy it to the previous value. So we fill the data set again. Now again, if we'll check the line, let me copy the line. Now we execute. Now we executed this data. Now you can see all thing is false. It means now your data set doesn't have any not missing values. Now what we did, now again we have to do the same thing that we did in the previous one. Created X and Y. Last time we gave X as only max temperature and Y is minimum temperature. Now what we did, for X we give all the attributes which is present: fixed acidity, volatile, citric, residual, chlorides, everything that exists in the table, everything as X, and Y is the answer that we want, is the quality of the data set. Now we executed the line. Now you can see X shape is 64,097, 11 rows. Y is 64,000 something. Now remember I told you about the reshape one, that you have to reshape the data in order to provide the, what can you say, like you have to make a sorry, so you use the reshape one to provide the a blank column in order for your data to work completely fine. We are not doing it here because we may have to make sure only that the X value should be having the columns. If Y value is not, it's fine. And most of the time, the error that you will get with that particular thing, that you do not have a 1D error or 2D array, it only most of the time appears in simple linear regression. Only simple linear regression. If you're doing it a multiple linear regression, and if you're trying it like in any other algorithm, you do not find any problem in that. So it's just a thing of simple linear regression that you find that error problem. So we execute the data. Now the same line that we execute, xtrain and xtest. So I guess you remember all the things that I've told you about the train test split, that you provide the value of X, we provide the value of Y, we provide the what exact test size that we want. For here at 0.2, it means training data out of all the data set that you have, training data should be 80% and testing data should be 20%, and random state is 0. So you can give any number, you can give none, 0, 1, 2, 3, any number. Okay, so you have xtrain, xtest, ytrain, and ytest. Now again the same thing that we did last time, regression. We make an object with a linear regression model and we gave the fit value. So regression.fit xtrain and ytrain. So when you execute the line, we can see this output that the model has been trained. Now, last time when we use the coefficient, is the coefficient like regressor.coefficient, we got exact one value, and intercept we got one value. But here, when you write regressor.coefficient, you have a number of values, because last time we have only one x, like only one independent variable. This time we have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 12 different values. So for each and every value of objects, you have a coefficient. So you can see the coefficient is for like, now the line that you're trying to make is y is equal to m1x1, m2x2, m3x3, m4x4 till whatever number of x that you're providing. So you got the coefficients. Now again, just to see, like, make it more visible that what all coefficients that you made for each and every attribute is been given here. So coefficient.df is a data frame that we made using this particular data, regression.coefficient, and we provide all the indexes as all the index that we used. Now regression.coefficient is the same number that you're providing. So you can see the same number is there. Now what we did here, when you just see the regression coefficient here, it's like kind of messy that you do not understand which one is for which attribute, or which one is for which x. So what we did, we provided the index, the same index that we have. We provide the same index that we have, you can see, and finally we just name the columns as columns. So even if we don't do it, it's not going to be here, so it's fine. But we just gave the name as columns. So all the dependencies have been indexed. So now you can see the fixed acidity got a coefficient of 0.073. Volatile acidity got a coefficient of 1 minus 1.321. So now in this particular column, like in this particular dataset, you found out which attribute are positively correlated, which attributes are negatively correlated, and how they're affecting the final answer. So if you can see density is minus 49, it means it's highly negative correlated. So if any change in density, the answer is changing a lot. Now there are numbers like fixed acidity. Fixed acidity is 0.07. So changing in the fixed acidity doesn't affect the answer way too much, because the factor with which it's affecting the output is very less. You can see 0.07, but compared to minus 49, it's a lot. So now again, if you have to predict using the model, we provide the x test, and using the predict option or the predict function that we used in the last day, we got an answer in by predict. Now the value of x we provided, the answer that we got from the model is been saved in by predict. Again, the previous time we did the same thing. We gave the x test, we got the answer from the model using dot predict function, and we save the answer in y underscore predict. And we also have the exact answer of x test in the data, like in the attribute, in the variable y test, because this using train test split. So all the answers of x test is saved in y test. Now we use x test to guess the answers, and now we're going to compare. Like x test is the exact answer for y test. Y test is the exact answer of x test, and y predict is the answer of x test predicted by the model. So we're going to compare. Now again, we plotted the same data frame. Now we can see blue is the actual one and yellow is the predicted one. And we can see it's kind of not really good, but it's kind of guessing the answers. Like you can see this, but for x of 0, the predicted and actual are really close. For x is equal to 1, predicted and actual are like not very close, but it's fine. For x is equal to 2, it's one distance, like one whole unit distance. For x is equal to 17, there's a huge distance. For anything which is completely similar, for x is equal to 16, the answer is almost similar. So this is what you get from the multiple linear regression. Now we go and find the mean absolute error and the squared mean error and the root mean squared error. So the same lines that we wrote in the linear regression one, we wrote it here. Now we got the absolute error is 0.5, mean squared error is 0.53, and root mean squared error is 0.7. Now you can see. So now you can see all the absolute errors are 0.5, 0.53, 0.7. So it's a really good model. You can consider it as a really good model because all the errors are not exceeding 1. The best portion should be The best thing should be that it's really close to zero. That if you're getting your absolute error or squared error as 0.02 or 0.03, it means your model is really, really good. 0.5, okay, it's acceptable, but not really much. And if you're crossing that line to be like, if your error is like 17 or 18, it means your model is not working really good here. So this is what multiple linear regression is. So what we've seen in linear and multiple, simple and multiple linear regression is you do not have to specify, like after like only you provide the value of x. In the simple linear regression, we provided the value of x as a simple, where can I'll show you, as a simple data set of mean temperature. In multiple, we just give the whole data set portion, everything. After that, we just exactly wrote the same lines that you have written in simple integration. So we do not have to tell the machine specifically that this time you have to apply a multiple integration. Depending on the data that the machine is getting, it will get to know that does it have to apply a simple linear regression or a multiple linear regression. So this is multiple linear regression. I don't think you have any doubts in that. If you want to plot like we did, nope, it's not possible because uh, you can only plot a graph of 3D diagram, not 4D or 5D. And this in this particular observation, we have how many? One, two, like we have 12 or something. So we have 12 attributes. So we can't plot a graph for 12 attributes. Will forward will work even we have a particular order in data like ascending? No, like okay, fill forward and like forward filling and backward filling, they are attributes which are not, it's a built-in function, but they're not highly used, because when you're using on a like what when you're working on a company and you're getting any data and it has missing values, you have to justify that why exactly you're filling the data here. So most of the time we go for like find the average and then fill every places at the average of the number, or classify the data and then find the average or frequency, or depending upon that. Fill forward, forward filling and backward filling depends on, yeah, exactly, depends on the data. Like if you have any data set which is in ascending order, it can be really, and if some data are missing, if it's in ascending order, fill forwarding can be a justified answer, can be a justified answer. If it's a descending one, backward filling is a justified answer. Should we use reshape method now also to make the data 2D? It's not necessary. That's why, as I've told you, the reshaping of data is always necessary in simple linear regression, like Ridge and Lasso. Also, like I'll tell you about Ridge and Lasso today. So it really is really necessary in simple linear regression. If it's multiple or if you're crossing the linear regression only, reshaping doesn't come that much. It depends. Like sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't. So you have to like get yourself used, like where does it where does it comes and where does it not, and you do not have to like remember it. If you're not giving the reshape and you're trying to train the model, you'll get that particular error that okay, the data set it's considered to be 2D, but you're giving it a 1D. Reading that line, you'll get to know that you have to provide a 2D data and you're providing a 1D data. So use the reshape. Okay. So I guess it's 3:23. I'm not going to teach you about region last. Which model deployment till what phase are you doing? What is model deployment? Till what phase are doing right now? What is model deployment? Now, model deployment is something that you do after all the things have been done, like you trained your everything. The model has been trained, you tested it, it's giving like 99% accuracy. Now you're done. But the thing is still that the model that you made is just a Python script. You have to execute it and give the data, you get the output. But deployment is making a making a front UI and allowing other people to access that UI so that they can use your model. They do not have to take the whole data, run that code on their own system, and then they can get the answer. You just have to provide a UI and a endpoint link so that they can just directly use your model by using the UI. They do not have to take care of what all things are going on in the background. Just users. They are not they are not what considering what you're done in the code. They just want to use your model. That's it. So for that, you have to deploy the model. You have to make the UI, make an endpoint so that if any person that comes to that endpoint, it will see your UI and your model is working there. So we'll be learning till, yes, you'll be learning for training the model only, because model deployment is, I'll not say like a completely off topic of machine learning, but it's like a side part that if you're using deployment, you should know a bit of UI and UX, because you're going to make a model, like you're going to make a UI so that the users can use it. Not necessary, but yeah. And then you should know some of the endpoints, like how you exactly can deploy the model from your PC to some places, like using Heroku or using any cloud system for deployment. So you have different stuff that you should know before deploying the model, because it's a really basic one. So I'm not gonna take you till the deployment level. First, make sure that you know it. Okay. Now this thing is done. Now there's only one small topic that I should teach you today, and then tomorrow we'll take care of ridge regression and lasso regression. Ridge and lasso. Okay, so as I've taught you about the train test split, that you just take the data and randomly split it between the training data and the testing data. But it's a random thing. Anything can happen in a random splitting. There can be a chance like a data set has 5 male attributes, like 5 male data and 5 female data. Okay, it's shuffled. It's not like 5 male data is at the first and 5 female data is at the end. It's shuffled. But if you're using a train test split, there is like 0.1% chance that the training data took all the male data and the testing data has all the female data. It's kind of possible. You can't deny it. So, and if you're working in a company, and it's like I keep saying if you're working in a company or something, but the thing is, what I'm telling you right now is like an ideal condition that you have a proper data set, you're just providing the data model. Like you're just taking the data and providing the model. But when you go out, when you're gonna work on your own, things are gonna be really different. Even before coming to the step where you have to make a model, you have to do so many steps like collecting the data, make it like make it right, that if the data even actually the data is helpful or not, you have to find out that the data handling about the missing values. We use forward filling and backward filling. Most of the time when you're going to make it as a project, forward filling and backward filling is not an option. You have to justify like why you exactly used this particular attribute, and your justification is valid. It's not like you can say like i just I just felt it, so I did it. That's not exact point. So you have to do that. So what happens is when you made a model, you did the train test split and you got an accuracy. Fine, you got an accuracy of like 81%. Guess it as an 81%. Now you gave the code to someone else. He did the he ran the code again, and upon running the code, it came to the train test split line. Now the train test split will split the data again, in a random way. Now this time the error that you got, also the accuracy that you got is 87%. Now you told the guy who's going to use the data, who's going to use the model, that the accuracy is 81%, and now when he's using it, he's getting the accuracy is 87%. Huge difference. Okay, this time the accuracy is increased. Good enough. But what happens is if it's the other way around, you told the guy that the accuracy is 87%, but when he used it, the accuracy is 81%. Can happen because you're using the train test split random splitting. So there is a shortcoming of this train test split. So to avoid the train test split randomness, we came across a condition, like we came across a technique which will make sure that the data, like which will make sure that the accuracy that you are getting is the average thing, like is the average accuracy. It's not exceeding something. It's not depending upon the randomness. It's the average answer that you will get each and every time, and that's what we called a cross validation. Now there are like different techniques that you have to use in cross validation, and currently we're going to see about 3 different cross validation techniques. In all the 3 cross validation techniques, 2 of them are highly used and one is like inbuilt, completely inbuilt. Like most of the time when you're using, like when you provide the value of CV, in most of the equations, you will provide the value of CV. CV is the number of cross validations. So when you see any CV written, it will not ask you which exact cross validation techniques to apply, because it's automatically applying the best one which is available in the market. So we'll go across the the cross validation techniques which is there. Now the first one, the basic one, or the ancient one which is never used now, is known as LOOCV. Now the full form of LOOCV is leave one out cross validation. So as the name suggests, what happens in leave one out cross validation is, just imagine we have n number of data, like from 1 to n. This is our training data set. So we have one attribute, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till n. Now what we do is, at the first iteration, we keep one value out of all the values of n. We keep one. Okay, now just consider it as each and every value is a pair of x and y, as we use in the linear regression. So each and every value is like x train has one value, y train has the attribute actual answer. So each and every value, which is 1, 2, 3, has a set x and y, and we're going to train our model in this. So what happens in LOOCV or leave one out is, for each and every iteration, we keep one one set, which is one value of x and y, outside the training data set, and we're going to train our model on the remaining one. As you can see, one has been left out, and till 2 to n, we train our model and we try to guess the answer with 1. Like we did it in train test split. We have like 80% of the training data and 20% of the testing data. We're not doing any 10 to 20%. We're just exactly taking only one output, like only one set outside the training data set, and we're going to train our model on the remaining one. And the data set, the data point that we kept out, we're going to use it, the training data set that we use, sorry, the data set that we left. What happened? No problem, bro, if you left the call. So sorry. So the data set that we left, we're going to use that particular data set, that particular data point, to guess the accuracy. Like you can see, the answer should be 1, 2, 3, something, something, something. We train our model on this particular whole data. And this one, okay, understood that you left the call. I am currently in a call. So we left only one. Now what happens in LOOCV is, this is the thing that we're going to do each and every time. So imagine we have n number of columns, like n number of data. Then for the first time, we keep one value out and train it on everyone. Second time, we're going to keep the second value out and train it on everyone. So you can see the next iteration, we kept the value 2 outside and train the model on 1, 3, 4, 5 and everything. Now the third iteration, we kept third out and we train the model on everything. Now this is we're going to do for each and every data set or each and every data point that we have in the training data. So theoretically, LOOCV gives us the most accurate average value. That's completely fine, because we are training our model on the maximum amount of data possible. So it's completely fine. But the problem with LOOCV is, just imagine if you have a training data set of 1 million rows. And in the previous example which I showed you about the linear regression, we have like 1,19,000 rows. So if you're gonna like apply LOOCV, it means you're training your model 1,19,000 times. That for each and every time we're just removing one data point and training it on the rest of one. And again, next iteration, one thing is left outside and we train our model on the remaining one. So what's the problem in LOOCV is, even though it gives you the accurate, like theoretically it gives you the most accurate result, but it's really computational heavy, and it can just completely, if your computer doesn't have a RAM of like 16 or 32 GBs, you can think that your computer has been crashed and you have to restart your computer to make it working again, because it's a really computational heavy task. So even though it's theoretically the best one, but we do not use it at all. So if we're not going to use the leave one out cross validation, what we're going to use? So the second one came, which is k-fold cross validation. Now this is one of the most famous one. K-fold the k-fold cross validation. Now what happens in k-fold cross validation is we do not keep only one data set outside the training data. We keep a whole fold outside the data. Now what does the fold means? Imagine we have a data set of 100, like 100 rows. Just imagine. Now in the k-fold cross validation, the first thing that you have to provide is the value of k, or the value of k stands for how much number of folds that you want to divide the data set into. Now in this particular example, we gave the k fold as 5. Now what will happen is we provide the value 5. Now the whole data set or the training data that you have, it's going to be divided into 5 different folds. It means if you have a 100 rows data set, the data set will be divided into 20 different columns, or the 20 different folds. You can see this is the first fold, second fold, third, fourth, and fifth. So this fold has 20 data. This has 20, this has 20, this has 20, and this has 20. The whole will be 100, and it's divided into 5 different folds. Now, after this thing has been divided, now we're going to do the same thing that LOCEV does, keeping one fold outside for testing, and we'll train the model on all the 4 remaining ones. Okay, so the first iteration, what happened is we kept one fold outside and trained our model on the first all the 4 remaining ones. In this particular iteration, we'll get any any accuracy or something. For the first iteration, we got an accuracy. Now the second iteration, we'll keep that particular data that we kept outside, that particular fold which we kept outside the value, outside the training one, we bring it in for the training, and we leave any other training set, any other fold value outside the training data. So now we can see we left the second fold outside the training data, and we trained our model on the 4 remaining one. So in this particular scenario, the green one stands for the one which is left outside for the testing one, and the blue stands for the training data, like the folds on which we trained our model on. So in the second iteration, the first, third, fourth, and fifth folds are used for training, and the second one has been used for testing. And for this iteration also, you'll get accuracy, and the same thing will happen with the third, fourth, and fifth equation. And for each and every iteration, you're gonna get an accuracy. So what will be the average accuracy? Total all the accuracy and give you the result. That's it. So this is what happens in k-fold cross validation. So it's kind of similar to leave one out, but instead of exactly taking only one data point, we're just grouping the data into folds and then doing the LWCV. So what the benefit of this is, even though the answer that you'll get will be not theoretically as accurate as LWCV, but it's reducing the computation that your data set or that your model or your PC or wherever you're deploying a model has to do. Because instead of going through all the data set, all the data points individually, you have different folds. So even though, just imagine we have 100 data set. If we have applied LWCV, we have to like train our model 100 times. But if we used k-fold cross validation and provided the value 5, it means the data set has been provided like divided into 5 different folds. Now, how many number of times we had to train our model? Only 5 number of times. So 100 divided by 5. So we have 20 data set. So we have only trained our model 5 times. So instead of training our model on 100, it's better to train our model on 5. Now this is k-fold cross validation. Now there's one small error that can happen in k-fold cross validation, and this is the thing that happens only when the data set is like clustered together. Imagine if we have a data set, again the same example, data set of men and women, like it's a example of data set having the height and weight. Just imagine the person's height has been given and the person's weight has been given. Fine. What happens in the data set is the first 50 data set belongs to men and the second 50 belongs to females. Now the data set has been clustered a bit. That first 50 is female and second 50 is male. First 50 is male and second 50 is female. So if you're going to apply the k-fold cross validation, you can see if there's 50 in the first part, 50 male in the first part and 50 female in the second part, the first k-fold cross validation that you will get for the testing one will have only male attributes. In the second one also, you'll have only male attributes. The third one will have a exact separation of first 25 female, sorry, 12 female and 12 male, or one here and there. In the fourth iteration, the training one, also, or sorry, the validation one will have only female attributes. In the fifth one, we'll have only female attributes. So this is one of the shortcomings of k-fold cross validation, is that when you divide the data, and if the data set has been clustered a bit, that particular case, your training accuracy that you will get can be affected because of the clustering. Because imagine you trained our model on all the male and female attributes, but what happened is when you're testing your data, it's only providing you the male attributes. So it can happen that the accuracy that you're getting is not perfect. It can happen. So this is one small shortcoming of k-fold cross validation. Now to avoid this particular shortcoming, we have to go for one more attribute, which is, sorry, one more cross validation, which is stratified k-fold cross validation. Now, as you know, as you can see, k-fold cross validation name is there. It means it exactly does the same thing. But what happens in stratified is it makes sure that all the folds that you are making should have equal amount of, equal class distribution. Now, what is class distribution? Now, the example that I've given, that your data set has 50 male and 50 female. Now you can see there's a 50-50 male and female percentage. In k-fold, we make the first attribute, we make the first fold, everything is only male. We made the second one, everything is only male. The third one, finally divided. Fourth, everything is female. Fifth, everything is female, because of the clustering of the data. What happens in stratified is it's gonna do the same thing. It's gonna split the data into 20 different folds. Sorry, only 5 different folds. But what it will make sure that the data that exists inside that particular fold is equally distributed. It means the first data will have, like in this particular example, the female is less, male is more, but depending upon like the example that I've given previously, if we have exact amount like 50% of male and 50% of female, what will happen? Even for the first attribute, you'll have 50% of the male attributes and 50% of the female attributes. Even in the second one, 50% of the male, 50% of the second female. So for each and every folds that you make, the stratified k-fold cross validation makes sure that the class distribution is completely equal depending upon a data set. If the data set tells that most of the people are male and less are female, taking example like 70%, like all considering all the data set, 70% is male and 30% is female. So it will make sure that all the folds that has been created, it's not completely dependent upon the position where they are there. It will make sure that the class distribution is exactly equal to what the data set has as a whole. It means as a whole data set has 70% of male attributes and 30% of female attributes. So for each and every value of k-fold, we'll have in all the data, we have 70 female attributes and 30% of male attributes. Giving it an exact numerical example, imagining just imagine we have 100 data set, 70 are male, 30 are female. Now we provided stratified k-fold cross validation with 5. So the data set is going to be divided into 5 different folds, but the 50 data set, like now if you provided the value 5, it means the data set has been divided into 5 different folds. It means each and every fold will have 100 divided by 5, it means 20 attributes. Now it will make sure that out of the 20 attributes, 70% will be male and 30% will be female, so that the problem that we are facing in k-fold will not be applicable here. That the class validation, which is completely tilted towards where their position, because the first 50 are male, first 50 are second 50 are female. It's completely depending on the position they are. It's not, you're not going to face it in stratified. So these are the 3 different cross validation techniques. it's not necessary that you always have to provide the cross validation. Most of the time we're gonna see, like when we're gonna learn all the codes, we'll not see k-fold cross validation applied each and everywhere. But again, when we are doing the real work and we are working on a single project and for which we have time and for which we're gonna, like, company will pay you only, so we have to make the perfect result. So we use cross validation each and every time. But in the future, when I'm gonna teach you about the codes, I'm focusing on how to get you learn the code. So most of the time I'll not be using the k-fold cross validation all the time. The next example which I'm going to give you tomorrow for Ridge and Lasso, we're going to use cross validation just to show you how cross validation works. After that, we are not going to use cross validation in our code, but this is the thing that, just to let you know, that even train test split has their disadvantages. To overcome that, we use we use cross validation. We have three types of cross validation: uh, leave one out, k-fold, and satisfied k-fold. Leave one out is leaving each and every one data set and training it on the other one. It is theoretically the best one, but really computational heavy. So I'll not say it's never used, but you can say tends to never. You'll never see anywhere that anyone is using uh, leave one out cross validation, unless and until you have a really small data set of, like, considering only 100 data set, or not even 100, like you have only 50 data samples, that's it. Then you can use k-fold, like leave one out cross validation. But if it crosses 1000 or something, then using leave one out is not at all an option. You have to keep it outside. In k-fold, we make foldings, or like we make different folds of the data. One shortcoming of the k-fold is that it can be biased depending upon the positioning of the data, like data points. If the first 50 are female, then the data, the distribution or the class distribution of any folds can be unequal. That any class will have all the female ones or any class have all the male ones. Yeah, that can happen. So to overcome this, we have the satisfied one, which will take care that each and every fold that you will make will have the equal class distribution as the whole class distribution for the data set. So this is what k-fold cross validation is. This concludes today's class. If you have any doubts, text or just turn on a microphone and say if you don't want to type. Hi. No. No. There's no specific reason that I used any different data set. You can use the one again. The only reason I used it is because the code has been written previously, so I do not have to write it from the scratch. Any references to cross validation? You'll get the code for cross validation in the next class when I'll teach about Ridge and Lasso. So in that code, we use cross validation and grid search CV. I'll tell you about grid search CV tomorrow. Don't worry about that. You'll get the references all again. Anyone else? Any other questions? And if there's not, you can just give the thumbs up or anything. Okay. 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 Looks like everything is fine. Now, cross validation, all the things can be a bit overwhelming to understand. So you can just, if you don't understand any stuff, you can again just come to this video and just watch the video again, or just go to YouTube and just search cross validation and what are the different techniques of cross validation. You'll get each and every, like, detailed example with visuals, detailed examples there also. So I guess this concludes today's lecture. I'll upload the multiple integrations Jupyter notebook with the data set. So if you have any doubt in multiple integration or in k-fold cross validation, text me. Anyway, okay then. Bye bye. Have a nice day.